Let's step back for a minute and take a bigger picture, because that's what this whole series is about. How do you think President Obama is doing, and what do you think the Republican approach should be in dealing with him?
Well, first of all, I think the Republican approach should be to hold true to the principles that we know are right for America and for our future. Fundamentally, Republicans believe that individuals and individual freedom are what built America and will build a more prosperous future. And Barack Obama and his team have made it very clear. They have a very different view. They believe that an all-powerful, growing government is the right course for America's future. It is a very dramatic difference between the two. So when Barack Obama has a stimulus plan, it includes a lot more money from government. When the Republicans put forward our stimulus plan, it said put the individuals in charge, help small business. When they look at health care, the Democrats say, look, we want government to take over health care because it's not working well. Republicans say, how can we give individuals more authority and responsibility for the health care system so they can have better care under their direction? It's a very stark difference. And I think you're going to find philosophically the American people will recognize that the bailouts, that the growth of government is the wrong course for America, and instead the principles of the Republican Party will keep America stronger with a brighter future.
Let's talk about one of the president's big initiatives in an area that you have a lot of personal and even family history in, and that, of course, is the auto business. It looks like General Motors will file for bankruptcy tomorrow, with the government putting up a total, what they did in the past and what they're going to do now, of $50 billion and taking roughly a 70% ownership stake. Back in November, you wrote an article in which you said, this is before there'd been any bailouts by President Bush, no bailouts, let's go to a managed bankruptcy. Looking back, wouldn't that, at a time when we were in the depths of the recession, when we were really right in the midst of what looked like a financial crisis, wouldn't that have been disastrous for the economy? It
would have been precisely the right thing to do for the economy. To help General Motors at that point, before it had received tens of billions of dollars from the government, go through a structured process, either in court or out of court, to rid itself of its excessive union contract obligations, would have been the right course. And at that point, government could have helped with warranty guarantees and so forth, with debtor and possession financing to get the company back on its feet. We wouldn't have closed the business down or liquidated. We instead would have helped it restructure at a time when government funding was not going to add billions of dollars to the American taxpayer's burden. It was the right course to take. It's being taken now, too late, unfortunately, and as a result, the government ends up with over 70% of GM and the UAW some 17%. Look, let me talk about going forward. The right thing going forward for General Motors and for our government is to get government out of the direction of General Motors. President Obama should indicate that immediately upon this bankruptcy, all of the shares held by government will be distributed to the American taxpayers, and therefore that the public will be able to vote just like shareholders, and likewise at the UAW. The head of the UAW ought to indicate all of our shares are going to our members, not to the head of the UAW. We don't want a president and a head of the UAW running General Motors. The American public ought to own that enterprise.
So who would run General Motors?
Well, the shareholders. The shareholders, and you'll see Americans trade shares, buy and sell amongst themselves. They'll probably consolidate. There'll be shareholder meetings. They can elect their board of directors, and the company will be run to create products that Americans want. They can be competitive globally. They can hire and fire the CEO as they want. You don't want politicians in Washington saying, okay, we want you to build this kind of car. And, oh, that factory over here, it's in Senator so-and-so's district, and you can't close that one even though it's the high-cost factory. You have to open another one over here. You don't want politics directing American corporations. That whole approach, which obviously is one that Barack Obama is wedded to, is the wrong approach for America. Americans recognize it. Individuals, the free market system is what has built America to the nation we are, and that's how we ought to go forward.
But, Governor, for all the doomsayers, Chrysler got a bailout. Now it's gone through bankruptcy. Seems to be speeding through bankruptcy court. They're going to basically be bought by Fiat, and they're going to, it looks like, be a viable company within some period of time, maybe weeks.
Precisely my view. That's why I wrote, as I did in November, that these companies need to go through a process of shedding their excess costs, hopefully outside the bankruptcy court. But in fact, both of them look like they'll go into bankruptcy court. But let me underscore one thing, Chris, and that is, this is a real sad day. I mean, I'm a son of Detroit. My dad was an auto executive. I drive American cars. I love American cars. My heart bleeds for the people in Michigan and Detroit, for all those auto workers. This is a very, very sad circumstance for this country, and it represents bad decisions by management, overreaching by the UAW. It's really tragic in a lot of respects, and it has not been well played, either in my view by the Bush administration or by the Obama administration.
When you look, I want to switch to the main subject here, which is the future of the GOP. Since if you look at the GOP since 2004, you've lost ground in the West and the Southwest. You've lost ground in the mid-Atlantic states like Virginia and North Carolina. And in your home region, New England, not a single Republican congressman anymore. Aren't you in danger of becoming a mostly white, mostly Southern regional party?
You know, there have been other times when our party has been written off, and there have been times when the Democratic Party has been written off. And what typically happens is that the party that gets all the power starts thinking good about themselves and overreaches, and the American people say they've gone too far. That happened to us. I think we made mistakes when we had the leadership of Congress, and I think you're seeing the President and Democratic leaders in the House and the Senate making mistakes that will make them far more vulnerable to a correction, a mid-course correction. And I think you'll see the Republican Party come charging back. I was just in Virginia. Bob McDonnell there running for governor. I think he's going to win. Chris Christie in New Jersey. I think you're going to see the two governor's races this year both go to Republicans, because people recognize that this Democratic administration is taking us far too far to the left. And America is fundamentally a center-right nation. And if we hold true to our principles and do a better job communicating those principles and holding true to them, right, acting as we speak, I think the American people will put us back in a position of leadership.
Is it enough to just say we're going to hold true to, and a lot of people say, the Reagan principles? Don't you have to have new answers for the new problems that people face?
Sure, and as the world changes, you have to make sure that those principles are applied to the new reality. So, for instance, our health care challenge today is 47 million people without health insurance. And we know our principles. We believe in markets and individuals. So we look at that problem and say, how can we get individuals to have more control over their health care? And one way that's been proposed is to let people buy their own private insurance plan and be able to own it. As they change jobs, they still own that insurance plan. It's a Republican, free market-oriented plan. The Democrats have a different plan. It's not working, so we're going to have government give folks a government insurance product. And that, in my view, is putting us on a course to become like Canada or Great Britain, which have far inferior health care systems.
We've got a couple of minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about Mitt Romney's future, not the GOP's future, although they may be linked for all we know. You say it's far too early to think about running for president, but you've got a very active political action committee. You just pointed out you're campaigning all over the country in New Jersey, Virginia, Ohio this week. Fair to say that you're keeping your options open to running again for president?
Yeah, I'm not going to close that door, but I'm not going to walk through it either. And the action that I'm going through right now is trying to help people who I think would make a difference for the country, and frankly, also help some people who help me. You know, when I ran for office, I had a lot of folks come out and do a lot of work for me, and they call and say, okay, it's now your turn to help me, and so I'm going out and helping some of those, and I think it's an important thing, but we have plenty of time to decide what the future holds. It's very early, 5 months into the president's term. We'll see how he does, and we as a party, I think, are going to come back stronger, more vibrant, and more committed to following the principles that have always been at the base of our party.
Well, there is one decision that you have to make pretty soon. You sold your house, and I don't know how lucky you were to be able to do that in this market. You sold your house in Massachusetts.
Too cheap, I imagine.
That's right. The price was too low.
Yeah.
And the question is where you're going to establish your legal residence. And one possibility, because you have a vacation home there, is New Hampshire. Are you going to establish legal residence in New Hampshire?
No, my residence is still in Massachusetts. That is my home. That's where I vote. And I'm going to continue to be a Massachusetts resident. I can't tell you how many years that's the case, but for the indefinite future.
Any possibility that you, by 2012, could be running in New Hampshire as the favorite son?
I don't think so. Massachusetts is my home, and I'm not looking forward to any particular race, but my residence continues to be Massachusetts and will be.
Governor Romney, we want to thank you so much for coming in and kicking off this new series, and sir, please come back.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be with you.